Support for Elwood City Limits is made possible by Facebook,
Facebook.com/Elwood City Limits,
Twitter,
@ECL Podcast,
email,
ElwoodCityLimits@gmail.com,
and by subscribing on iTunes and following us on SoundCloud. Thank you.
and my free time. Will, is there a groundhog in Arthur?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't think that there is a groundhog character. No, there might be a beaver somewhere.
And I wonder, in Arthur, like, are they sent? Do they have a Groundhog Day in Arthur? I think that'd be a fun little bit. Like, everybody's in Elwood City, and they're waiting for just like a normal groundhog to come out of his house.
Right.
Like, he just walks out of his home with the picket fence. He's got a newspaper. Maybe he's in a
Beautiful weather, huh?
Yeah, he's in a bathrobe, and he's like, "Well, who's that?" And it's like his shadow on the ground. Look, we're like the Arthur writers. We just came up with a bit.
There we go. That's a whole 12-minute episode.
That's for you, writers. You can have that one for free.
That's right.
I expect my check in the mail. Actually.
Hey there. This is Elwood City Limits. This is the episodic Arthur podcast. Thanks a lot for joining us once again. My name is Will Young, joined as always by Lucas Mancini.
Hi.
And we have with us a special guest today for this pair of episodes, our first special guest on the podcast. Please do well to welcome our good friend, Evan Stoney. Hey, Evan.
Hello there.
So you and I are going to be cozying up together. We're sharing a mic here. So, Evan, you're kind of in a similar age group as us. What's kind of your experience been with Arthur?
Well, I think like most young children, that Arthur's a big part of my childhood, at least. I remember watching it quite a lot as a kid. It wasn't my absolute favorite. I was definitely a Rugrats junkie, but
That theme song, though. That theme song's so dope.
oh yeah. Yeah, it's classic. It has so many great moments. But Arthur, I read a lot of the books, of course. I remember in elementary school sort of having like Arthur curriculums. My teacher was obsessed with Arthur and Robert Munch, so I read a lot of those.
Oh,
those
Robert
two.
Munch is my man.
Yeah, of course.
I grew up on that guy.
And now he's got that bad boy edge.
Does he? Oh yeah, he
likes to party. He likes to party, Robert Munch.
What?
Oh
What are
yeah.
you talking about?
Look it up.
No, tell me now.
I think he got caught doing coke or something.
What?
Yeah.
No way.
Robert Munch
Doing
and that,
coke with the paper bag princess?
He's doing coke with the paper bag princess and that guy from the Bare Naked Ladies. They're all just having a big old coke party.
That's crazy. I didn't know that. I'm totally looking that up. Robert Munch doing coke.
Mark Brown, more subdued, I would think.
Mark Brown does YouTube videos about how to make the perfect PB&J sandwich.
Oh, well, there you go.
He's as wholesome as it gets.
That's his own type of party, though. That's crazy.
Ain't no party like a PB&J party, because the PB&J party don't stop. Neither does Elwood City Limits. So, Evan, glad to have you with us today.
I'm glad to be here.
For this pair of episodes. First off, I want to give a shout-out to our listeners. I just kind of took a look at the statistics recently. We've got listeners from all over the world, including listeners in the US of A and a few in Europe as well. So hello to all of our international listeners. Now, before we get into the episode, now guys, if you have liked our Facebook page, Elwood City Limits, then you would be familiar with a viral video that was making the rounds last week. It was from The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. He gathered a few men to his charge to do the Arthur theme song. And so it was with Ziggy Marley, who did the original theme, and then they teamed up with
Chance the Rapper.
So what'd you think about that?
It's a simple message, and it comes from the heart. Believe in yourself, that's the place to start. I'm gonna get by when I'm gonna get rough. I'm gonna love life till I'm done growing up. And when I'm going down, I'ma go down swinging. My eyes still smiling and my heart still singing. Gonna get by when the going get rough. I'm gonna love life till I'm done growing up. And when I'm going down, I'ma go down swinging. My eyes still smiling and my heart still singing.
I thought it was really cool. Again, I'm a big Chance the Rapper fan. I love his rendition of that theme song, and it was cool. I don't think I've actually ever seen Ziggy Marley. I had a pretty good estimation of what he looked like in my head just from his voice and his last name, but it was cool to see him performing the theme again. And I wonder if he tours, and I bet if he does, he plays that song all the time. So it was kind of a fun little throwback to hear even Stephen Colbert be like, "Oh, I used to love watching this show with my kids."
Yeah, it seemed kind of out of the blue a little bit. Now, Evan, you and Lucas are big rap fans.
Yes.
So Chance the Rapper, is he also your guy?
Yeah, man, of course. You gotta love Chance. He's just, you can't deny him at this point. He's on top of the rap game.
That's right. And I've told Will this before, I think in our first episode, that Chance the Rapper he's like the rap embodiment of Arthur, where that...
He's incredibly anxious and has an annoying little sister.
No, not Arthur the character.
Somehow bigger than him in rap?
No, not Arthur the character. More so Arthur the mission statement of the show. In that Chance the Rapper is a really positive rapper. Like I find the message behind a lot of his music is this really positive, love thy neighbor sort of thing. And I think the show the show Arthur has similar values, especially even in the theme song. So. It's a match made in heaven.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it yet, check out our social media. We've put it in a couple of places, and it was, really fun to share around. And definitely a little bit out of the blue for someone like Stephen Colbert to suddenly spotlight Arthur. But I'm glad that he got his due, because normally with PBS shows like that, you're thinking, like Sesame Street, and, everybody loves Sesame Street and the Muppets and all that kind of stuff. So good that we're finally moving ahead with that sort of thing. Okay, so we are looking at a new pair of episodes today. Remember, you can always follow along with us. In fact, that's the best way to interact with the show. Just Google in these episode names, and you can find it yourself. We can't condone or endorse the way that you find them, but you got to do what you got to do in order to get some of that Arthur sunlight in your life. So today, as is appropriate for our new, for somebody moving into our recording space here, Evan Stoney moves in. Sue Ellen moves in. Is our first episode. It actually worked out pretty well. I was like, hey, might as well do this next week. And it's like, it's all about a new character coming on this show. So it's works out pretty well.
Yeah, it was good. And I don't really know the Sue Ellen story beyond this. I forget. I know the cast of the Arthur characters.
Right.
Basic knowledge, but I really watched this episode with not very much context, because I haven't been watching a lot of them as of recent. This is probably the first Arthur episode I've watched in many years, I'd say.
You haven't been breaking it down week to week like we have.
Yeah, you've missed out on all those big arcs. Mr. Haney's somehow past life. You've missed out on the accent change that what's the janitor? Miss McGreedy's accent change. There's so many deep plot lines you've missed out on, Evan.
That's right. But this is not a bad one to get into at first. So I'll tell you. It starts off with, of course, we call it Arthur Ferris Buellering to the camera, because he's breaking that fourth wall, saying that kids don't always get along, and he kind of has a couple of pairs of his friends. So like Muffy and Prunella started out really hating each other for no real adequately explained or real reason. They just kind of started saying that they hated each other, and it stuck.
They're both very type A personalities, so it makes sense. Prunella is much like Muffy, a character we haven't really gotten to see yet, beyond her being like, she talks about her sister who's older than her all the time, and she's kind of stuck up. Right. Those are like her only two traits. She's the definition of a two-dimensional character. So I know she's got some episodes coming eventually, so I'm excited to see that.
Eventually, everybody gets an episode.
Something I thought was interesting here was that of all the people Arthur lists, he doesn't talk about how him and Francine didn't like each other at first, which we know for sure because we saw a whole episode about that.
Somehow Arthur's always kind of antsy to chirp Francine, even when it might actually be in the right. And then Binky and the Brain never really got along. More that Binky never really took a shine to the Brain's intelligence, and that always kind of made him feel a little inferior.
That situation, the Binky and the Brain one, where I think the Binky throws a block at the Brain in some sort of preschool setting.
Yeah.
That happened to me in real life. That exact thing.
You were building a huge castle, and somebody threw a block and messed it up.
Yeah, Jordan. I don't want to say his name. Actually, I almost outed him. He moved far away to America now, but I still dislike.
To escape you.
I still dislike him to this day. So I never forgot that, him throwing that block in my head.
And then again, the Brain is creating a good snowman, and Binky's barely making it up to snuff with his, and he just decides to tackle Brain through his snow Eiffel Tower or whatever it is, and And then they just both laugh about it. So it's like a couple of Krogans from Mass Effect who just kind of headbutt each other, and they're like, ah! Or
Violence.
Or something. So I thought that was really strange.
I think those two guys, their egos would certainly clash. I think that's why they didn't get along at first.
Okay.
I think they have very different mentalities.
That's true. One's sort of Hobbesian, and one sort of has a Locke view of humanity. They're two sides to the same coin, possibly.
Whatever you say, pal.
But I think Binky and the Brain, would that not be a great spin-off?
Oh, dude.
Should we not?
Do you think they knew?
Well, I don't know. It sounds so close to Pinky and the Brain.
Right.
It could have been, but it's such a minor plot point in this episode. I don't know if it was a big deal. But, I mean, I could see them road tripping, doing a buddy comedy.
They're Binky and the Brain. They're Binky and the Brain.
And
They're
know
the
what?
perfect odd couple.
You know what, though,
One is
Evan?
a genius, the other's a dog.
You haven't actually seen a lot of. There's been a lot of like Binky based episodes.
Oh, okay.
And Binky's one of my favorite characters. That he wasn't actually one of my favorite characters as a kid, but as an adult, like we've really got to see Binky's got a ton of depth because. You know, his basic character is he's kind of a bully. He missed a grade, so he's a little bit older than them, and he's kind of dense. And I say that, it's so insulting, but the writers really think that he's dense. But Binky's also got this sensitive side that he's embarrassed of, and he likes to read, but he's embarrassed of it. So he's one of the more interesting characters. And the Brain's just a fun character in general. Like, writing those super smart characters is always a fun time. So I think you're onto something with a Binky and Brain offshoot would be... They're two characters that I'd like to see more of.
They have a bit of interactions in later episodes, and I think you're absolutely right about that. And then it just kind of, the opening kind of, it's a little weird because we get this kind of theme that Arthur establishes and then immediately kind of throw it out the window because it's like nothing was like when we all met Sue Ellen, and then we just get her kind of specter in front of her house, and then it's like, what did that have to do with kids not liking each other? I mean, I understand where it goes within the episode, but it's just like, it's like Muffy and Prunella hated each other. Binky and Brain hated each other. And then Sue Ellen
arrives.
Boy, I tell you. Whew. What else is going on? This kind of thing. So I thought that was kind of a weird place to end that opening at. So then we get into the episode proper. They're sledding. Of course, it is a winter-based episode, so we're doing the classic of sledding. Did you guys like to do that when you were younger?
Oh, of course.
What was it? So I had one of those big red discs that like Francine is sledding on. What was your sled of choice?
I was a crazy carpet sort of guy.
Oh, crazy carpet.
Lots of crazy carpets. They're affordable. You can get plenty of them. You can take all your friends out on the crazy carpet. That's what I did for the most part.
Something I thought about this scene is that they're all sledding, and it's a very sign of the times kind of thing because none of them are wearing helmets. And I find you see a lot more kids sledding with helmets these days. Especially Buster. He's on one of those it's almost like a snowmobile, those sleds with the three treads.
Yeah.
Those things are so dangerous looking. Like, I feel like they're so top heavy that it's gonna Buster's, and they're going fairly fast.
It's a big hill, dude.
Maybe I'm getting too old, or I'm getting too much of a busybody. But I worried about the kids. I was like, man, they need a helmet.
We got Bitsy Baxter over here.
Exactly.
Do you think that would fly today? Is that PC enough? Are they allowed to show kids without helmets?
I don't think so. I think they totally. I mean, in shows where kids skateboard, they're always wearing like elbow pads and knee pads and the whole 9 yards. And I think these days, if you make a show where kids are sledding,
Power, you can't go 2 minutes without kids wearing a helmet. So everybody kind of sees that there's a moving van in the neighborhood they go to go see. So it's Buster, Arthur, and Francine, and then Muffy is in like the first opening seconds going down the hill, and then we just totally forget about her. So I don't know what that was about.
Much like the writers have forgotten about Muffy.
Yeah, no kidding. So they go to see what's going on at the new place, and then Francine has to duck out. So it's Buster and Arthur. They decide to sneak closer and peek inside, get a closer look of what's going on in this new house with this new people. Buster has to kind of pull down his ears so that he doesn't get spotted. Very, very Splinter Cell. Got to like make sure that you're tap and circle to get close to the window. Maybe knock on another wall so you can distract somebody. And then they get spooked by lights on a timer. They're just like immediately. It's just like, oh, it's invisible people. I'm like, no, dude, it's just lights turning on.
Buster's exact quote is, "I know why we didn't see the people in there. They're invisible."
Right. That's his first of many a lot of working theories we get in this
So,
episode.
I guess I'm going to just address this right now. The running theme of this whole episode is we've talked about this before, but Buster would be so into fake news. Like, he would be all about Infowars.com. That was the whole vibe I was getting from Buster.
No, that's my note here. I said
I have the same note.
I said this is Infowars Buster.
I didn't say Infowars. What I did say was I think that Buster's going to grow up and he's definitely going to be a conspiracy theorist to the fullest extent.
Oh, absolutely.
He had the most whacked out theory for sure on what was going on with Sue Ellen, and I think he's definitely going to be very neurotic, very paranoid, and.
But he's also so unwilling to fact check, like, whatsoever. Like, Buster, he's the definition of, like, he hears something once and he's like, that's the explanation, and he obsesses over it. Like, any moment in this episode, I wrote down all these Buster lines, and I'm expecting each one to be followed by, and also they're putting fluoride in the water, and the fluoride, like...
Buster, the chemtrails.
Yeah, exactly, the chemtrail. Like, it's so weird. I think a part of this is now, like, you know, I think conspiracy theorists were a lot goofier in the 90s. You watch a show
They were a lot less of a threat.
Like Joe Rogan's character on the show News Radio, he's kind of a conspiracy theorist. He's always talking about UFOs.
/ maybe Joe Rogan in real life?
I
said maybe. Not willing to
but
commit to that.
I don't disagree. But like there was that era in the 90s where the X-Files was big. Everybody's like, it was sort of this like... It was a lot more lighthearted. Like, the government knows about the aliens and they won't tell us. But the current world we live in, I think the idea of conspiracies and alternative, quote-unquote, alternative facts have taken a lot more of a sinister turn.
Yeah,
so
you're
seeing the way Buster sees the world around him, I still kind of find it funny, but given the current context, I look at it and I'm like, oh, Buster, like
Buster Breitbart Baxter over here.
when you read the Economist, Buster, that paper's existed for like hundreds of years. They have multiple points of inquiry. They have separate sources. Like, it's not fake news, Buster. You can trust. You can trust the Economist.
You need to vet your sources.
I think Buster has good intentions, though. I think he's just worried about his own well-being and probably the well-being of others.
So is Alex Jones.
Yeah, but I don't think Buster would align with the alt-right or anything like that.
No,
I don't think he's. He's
got too good of a heart for it, and the good thing that separates, Infowars.com from don't visit that site from Buster is the fact that Buster's a kid, so he's kind of allowed to go on these flights of fancy, and like we have this implicit trust that he will kind of smarten up as he gets older.
I hope
it
so.
Does
Buster.
say a lot. It says a lot about his character, though, which sometimes you just can't shake.
That's right. Buster's at dinner with his mother, and we find out that his mother, whose name is Bitsy, she works at the paper. And I actually thought that this episode did a lot better service to her than normal, because it's like, oh, she's not just helicopter parent. She works at the paper. She wants to interview the new family, and she seems totally fine. So I thought this is a step in the right direction.
I just realized how ironic it is that his mom is a part of the media.
Oh yeah,
I didn't even realize that till you mentioned it.
Where do you think he gets that from?
That implicit distrust. Maybe his dad, when he's flying those jets, he knows about the chemtrails in the jets.
Do you think that's why they divorced? Oh my God! The plot thickens over here.
The dad just tried to order those vitamins to protect them from fluoride one too many times.
What really happened at Roswell? Let's find out, Buster. Let's fly a plane there. Buster's just kind of like, I don't think anybody's going to be able to see them, Mom.
That's right. His mom wants to write a story about them.
About these invisible people. And then Buster's at Arthur's place. Arthur, in a classic case of crafty inventions for kids, like, those old books that we used to have when we were young of just like, here's a bunch of crafts you can make and like all this sort of stuff. Arthur is making a makeshift periscope.
It's very Boy Scout.
Out of a milk carton and a mirror. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was really interesting. And I wonder if it actually works. Like, I wonder, because all he did was kind of cut a square out of it and have somehow a small rectangular mirror that he just, I don't know, cut out of a mirror.
So I actually did make one of these in Boy Scouts.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, back in the day.
Wait, you were in Boy Scouts?
Yeah, I was.
Wow.
And this whole project is
Look
very...
at Clark Kent over here.
It's very Boy Scouts. It's very Canadian living. Like, that's a magazine for you American listeners. But it's very like boys' life, kind of like... oh, you get 2 cans and you put a string between them. You can use them as the walkie-talkies.
Yeah.
But this totally does work, and it doesn't seem like it should. You're like,
No, there's like a middle step that you're kind of missing. That I'm like, if I tried to make that, I'd be like, why isn't it working?
but it does. It works surprisingly well.
Very creepy, though. I may add that they all know how to do this. I mean, it's straight up just a spying device.
Yes.
They're using it to peer in Sue Ellen's window. Stage 5 creep right there. That's like, what is
Buster, but you know what though? Buster's got the right idea. Instead of taking matters into their own hands, he says to Arthur, "We should go to the FBI before we go back to that house."
And then to which Arthur responds, "Before you start a crazy rumor, I want to be sure." So we're at least he's used to it by now. Like he knows Buster's escalation. Like he's able to kind of at least try and bring it back down. So they again, like you said, stage 5 creeping on the Armstrong family, Sue Ellen Armstrong, and they're kind of in a snowbank. And then all of a sudden, like somebody walks by them who isn't even like anybody, and they just take this huge dive through the snowbank, and it's just like. Not sure why they thought that was because they don't really move. They just kind of go into the snow, and I just kind of thought it was funny. They're just like, and then just like, got him. They can't get us now. We're all wet.
Well, they're just extremely frightened by everything that happens while they're creeping.
Yes.
There's another
Oh my
moment
God.
where the music starts playing, and what do
Yeah.
they say? They go, "It's alien music,
Outer space
outer
music."
space music," and they all just bail immediately.
They just run away screaming.
Yeah, I'd say it's a little hasty to jump to that conclusion.
Well, Buster Breitbart Baxter is nothing if not hasty. So they're kind of, at this point, collaborating theories before they even meet Sue Ellen about exactly who she might be at the Sugar Bowl. And so you mentioned, Lucas, that kind of Prunella's character right now is referring to her sister. Her sister's name, Rubella.
Yeah, those parents. Listen, maybe they're sticking with a theme. They did better than George Foreman, but they really are not the most imaginative folk.
So we get into a couple of the working theories that the kids have about Sue Ellen. So Prunella, her theory is that Sue Ellen and her family, presumably, lived internationally as a team of cat burglars. So there's many cutaways here about the theory. So it's like Sue Ellen dressed in your classic domino mask, all black. She's on an enormous like city-eating Zeppelin in Paris, and she ropes down to an art museum where there are 2 guards who are just kind of patrolling, and she manages to use all her wiles to abscond with like all of the paintings, just kind of rolls them up like posters and puts them in her backpack. And you can tell it's France because there is a guard who is openly eating a croissant and going like making the OK sign, just like ah oui.
He's also got kind of a
yes.
semi almost racist mustache.
Yeah, he's very very curly, very very whatever the lead character of Lazy Town is.
Oh, Sporticus.
Sporticus.
How
did I know you'd know that?
It's very high concept with the Zeppelin. I don't know. I feel like some of these are direct. At least the imagery in these dream sequences are direct references or homage to things. Like the next dream sequence with the car and the window is very The Prisoner, like that old British TV show.
Yes.
I wonder what this is a reference to, the Zeppelin and in Paris and the cat burglar from the Zeppelin, because I feel like I've seen this imagery before.
Yeah, maybe. And I mean, I can't think of anything specific because there's not a whole lot of times you see Zeppelins in media, but
which is a darn shame.
yeah, no,
by
Zeppelins
the way.
are awesome. Like I think that they should be used more, but it reminds me of like. This is going to be so weird. Like the first thing it makes me think of is the Knighthood, which was like that French comic that was a Teletoon cartoon for a little bit.
I'm not familiar.
No, it's
Sounds dope.
You wouldn't be, but it's like about a French like vigilante, sort of like the French Batman or something. And it's the kind of thing that's set in like, of course there would be Zeppelins and like bobbies and stuff like that.
It's whale punk.
Yes. No. That's no.
Oh,
It's no whales. It's France. There's no whales. Are there whales in France?
Good question.
I mean, the country Wales is near France. But
Ooh.
whale. I don't think whale punk necessarily needs to have whales, but I digress.
But then why is it called whale punk?
I mean, why is? We could get into this, but why?
Ah.
No, but Why is Witch House called Witch House?
What's Witch House?
It's a genre of music.
What is it though?
It's like, oh gosh, we're getting into this, but it's like a type of house music. It's a subgenre of house music.
Oh, right, house music.
With more of a.
Do they play like Halloween sound effects?
It's like house music mixed with like soft grunge and like that kind of stuff. It's one of those.
Yeah, I feel like we could spiral down off of this. So let's get back to
when I say whale punk, I'm talking about like Dishonored.
Okay. Yeah, well, yeah, that's the first thing I thought of. But there's like actual dead whales in Dishonored 2, which I just finished playing. Suellen is menaced by this guard with a croissant that he uses in place of a gun here. But then she has the ultimate way out. Instead of taking the rope back up, she uses rocket shoes. So she's got her rocket sneakers. And then finally, in the fantasy, decides to set course for a place called Elwood City, where no one realizes I'm here to rob them. Then we go into Arthur's idea, which is that he says she's not the cat burglar type. Instead...
Which is presumptuous because he's never met her.
Right. He just kind of looks at her, and instead of a cat burglar, he sees an international villainous spy who has been playing the role of this elderly scientist, like in-house maid or whatever, and gets the master program from him, and then delivers it to a country that she's spying for that she admits she can't pronounce the name of. And I actually wrote it down. It's like she goes to the embassy of this fake country. I Googled this. And it's, she keeps trying to say like Ningafafa. See, and I wrote it down. It's NGNGAFAJHC. So it's like Ningaf something.
I thought this bit was hilarious, by the way. Like, I spy for a country I can't even pronounce the name of.
Yeah.
Is a really great line.
It's really out there.
And like I said before, the sequence specifically where she's like driving in the old car and she talks to the window, straight out of The Prisoner, if you watch that like 60s British television show. So I thought that was a cool homage.
What did you make of these theories so far, Stoney?
These theories about what Suellen does. I thought they were cool. The theories, obviously, these kids are letting their imaginations run wild. But I coming back and watching this Arthur episode, I liked it because the dream sequences are very creative, and it reminded me of like Gilligan's Island, shows like that, where they go into these ridiculous fantasies for a little while, just randomly.
I didn't know they did that on Gilligan's Island.
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever actually seen an episode.
Yeah, they'll like insert the characters into all these situations, make them pirates or make them whatever. So I thought that was really cool. It's a creative part of Arthur that I definitely forgot about that I think I enjoy.
It's so interesting you say that, Evan, because like in my experience rewatching this show, that's been one of my favorite parts is they get really out there with the dream sequences. Like the episode we were talking about last week, me and Will, it had decapitation. Oh yeah, there's been tons of dream sequences with implied death and really
like prolonged torture.
Yeah, bizarre imagery in all these dream sequences. And when Will says prolonged torture, he's not talking about just one. I can think of multiple prolonged torture dream sequences.
Yeah, some real terrifying images.
I watched the wrong episode.
Yeah.
Next time, don't make me get the crank.
Yeah, exactly. I love that one. And then, of course, Buster's is the sensible one because there's like a spy. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. I'm telling you, she's part of an alien invasion force given human form. And it cuts to a flying saucer landing, and out comes Suellen, the rat kid who's kind of in the background every now and then, and DW. And he's just like, who knows how many of them walk among us.
It's very Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Oh, absolutely.
While they're all like pontificating on what Suellen's true nature is, there's a line that this is where I realized Buster had gone full InfoWars. And it's, I think someone like says, well, maybe they're just normal or something like that.
Yeah.
And Buster responds with, that's the kind of thinking that will get this planet conquered. I just that one line is what really solidified in my mind of Buster being like, it's the globalists! The globalists!
We gotta get them before they get us.
Yeah, they're demons. Yeah.
Catch him in bed with a goblin.
We can't go down that road again.
No, we really can't. Because it sounds like the more we use it, just like I don't want us to sound like we're endorsing him. It's
No,
just like, not at all.
No.
So at this point, everybody's tongues are wagging about Sue Ellen, and we get this like almost Brady Bunch-esque phone tag cutaway where it's like everybody is taking up their parents' line and just talking incessantly about Sue Ellen, probably using the new three-way calling feature. I remember when that was like when there were a bunch of changes to the phone system here in our part of Canada, and there was like it came on the back of the phone book, and it was like now you can have three-way calling.
I love this sequence because it's sort of, like you said, the Brady Bunch, where it's this grid and every character occupies a square. But there's a part at the end where it's really creatively animated, where Binky sort of breaks the fourth wall and climbs out of his square.
Right.
And the reason he does this is because he's called Mr. Ratburn unknowingly, and he's like, "Have you heard about Sue Ellen?
About the new kid?"
And Mr. Ratburn's like, "Who is this?"
Hey, not just it's Mr. Ratburn's school line.
Oh, I didn't notice that. I thought he was in his home.
No, I think he's in the classroom.
That's even funnier.
Yeah, really, it is. I liked it a lot. So finally, Buster and Arthur get a glimpse of Sue Ellen, and she seems pretty normal. Just kind of asked him where the post office is, but she doesn't know what snow is. Like she's never seen snow before. She says like cold, wet sand. So that kind of gets them confused a little bit.
I think she seemed a little suspicious at that point. Actually, I was kind of on Buster's side for a minute because it's like, where's the post office? First of all, you don't have any letters with you. What do you do? What? And you're 5. Why do you need to go to the post office? First of all, and then when they tell her where the post office is, she starts pretending she doesn't know what snow is. So she doesn't even go to the post office.
Okay, pretend.
Okay. I'm being harsh.
You're reaching a little there, folks.
Yeah,
okay, understood. Hey,
so I understand they're like, who is this? Like, why is she like?
We need to have somebody here to stick up for Buster because I found it a little difficult.
I relate to Buster.
Sure.
I will say this, and this is sort of we've seen kind of Sue Ellen as an extra in a lot of episodes, but this is the first time I really realized Sue Ellen's got a really unique voice actress.
Yeah.
I find a lot of the kids kind of sound a little bit samey, and that's because I'm sure a lot of them share voice actors.
The same voice actor, yeah.
But I found Sue Ellen has a unique voice and almost a unique accent that's different than the other kids, which I thought was a really interesting detail because she's supposed to be from a different place.
Right. She does kind of seem like she's not from around here. That's a good point. I actually hadn't really thought of that. So this is where we get the...
one more thing on not knowing what snow is.
Go ahead.
When I was in junior high, I knew a Hawaiian kid who had just recently moved to where we're from, Nova Scotia.
That must have blown his mind.
Well, so he had seen snow before, but it was only at like ski hills in mountain. He had never seen snow fall. Like he'd never seen no snow turn into snow is falling and now there's snow.
Right.
And I was with him. I was over at his house playing Halo 3 when he saw his first snowfall. And so that's something I'll never forget
that must
because
have been awesome.
It was a really interesting experience to see someone who had never seen snow falling to the ground see it for the first time.
Right. It's like if you and I were in a different country and all of a sudden it's like it started raining blood. And everybody's like, it just does that. And I'm like,
I'd be like, where's the brood?
like, what? just like, man, that'd be nuts, or like or something, or like in those countries where it like rains fish for no reason. You ever see that? Like when it's just like this.
Oh yeah, I think I read that in Genesis.
No, I'm serious. It's like it's a phenomenon that happens in some parts of the world. Obviously not all the time, but it's just like imagine if it started raining fish and everybody's like, or like in that Simpsons episode where it's like Homer gets to that the Treehouse of Horror where Homer gets to that idyllic version of his life, except nobody knows what donuts is, and then it starts raining and it's raining donuts. That kind of thing. I bet it would feel like that because I can't imagine not knowing what snow is like living here in Canada. So this is where we get the outer space music. And then Buster runs home and finds out that his mother has invited the family to join them for dinner. At this point, Buster's paranoia is off the charts. He thinks that the Armstrong family is out to get him. They're coming to neutralize him.
Exactly. I wrote down that quote because that quote stuck with me. That, yeah, they're coming to neutralize me. He said it with his squeaky little voice.
Yeah, because if you read between the lines, it's just like they're coming to kill me. Mm-hmm. Like,
or worse, or they're coming to like brainwash him, or
really,
like neutralize could mean all sorts of negative
killing's
things.
too good for him. I don't know.
Just so that he thinks it's going to happen to him, it goes to show just how paranoid and self-involved. Like that, it's a very "they're coming to get me" sort of thing. When he didn't even talk to Sue Ellen, but all of a sudden he thinks she's after him in particular. Like it's. Yeah, he's getting a little carried away.
He
doesn't
need encouragement in this sense. In fact, I wrote down here, I'm really more. This is the first episode that I'm saying this, but I'm actually kind of more into Bitsy than into Buster than this episode, because like Bitsy's just kind of doing her job. She's just like, I'm interviewing this family and they were very nice, and now I'm inviting them over for dinner, and just like, oh, that's nice of you. And Buster's just like, they're coming to kill me, man.
Yeah, Mom, you write for fake news. Like he's very much
the known liberal bias of the Elwood City Times. I'm not buying it.
So Buster, when he's at peak freakout, he sort of has this nightmare
Peak
sequence.
freak, yeah.
When we talk about the creative dream sequences of Arthur and how dark they can get, this one I remember legitimately gave me nightmares as a kid.
Okay, so it's Buster in his room, and we see like the cartoon scent trail of whatever his mother's cooking, and it's like
raspberry pie,
roast beef, mashed potatoes, and raspberry pie. That's the good stuff right there. But then Buster's like, this must be a clever alien trap. And then so cut to Buster's imagination, where it's like this amazing spread, like everything you could want. But then it's Sue Ellen and her family crowded around him, and she says, "You're the only human who knows our true identity." She brings out a spray bottle and encases him in this bubble, and they open the window, and he floats up into space. They put him in an airtight bubble, and they set him adrift in space.
Presumably to perish in the vacuum of space.
What else would you do?
Float into the sun or something.
All he has in the bubble is like a pizza slice.
You know what, though? He's not really freaking out that much. He's like...
he's taking it remarkably in stride.
Yeah, he reserves himself to it, and he's like, oh... I forget what he says exactly, but he seems more bored than anything else.
Now Earth is enslaved because I couldn't control my appetite. I wish I'd brought some cookies.
He's hungry is his main issue, not that he's going to suffocate.
Or that Earth is going to be enslaved.
Oh, that's true.
And he needs to get his priorities straight.
Yeah, no, really. But
courage
under fire, this Buster Baxter.
There's a lot of things in Arthur that do stick out as things that really did truly scare me as a kid, to the point where I would think about them when I went to sleep. And this is one of them. So, like, there's the classics, right? There's the Jekyll Hyde song, horrifying stuff. There's there's that bus that they can never get off, and it's squid people.
Oh yeah, I was thinking about that one yesterday.
But this one's up there. I think perishing in the vast infinite space is a really, really scary concept.
Well, when you think about it now, it's like when I was a kid, it's just like, well, obviously it's his imagination. And then it's just like, he's just stuck in space. And like now it's like, no, he's dead. He is dead.
Yeah, Gravity with Sandra Bullock. This is not.
Like if he doesn't die in the bubble will burst. And I don't know which is worse. Actually, the bubble bursting is worse, because at least when you're...
Oh, I don't think so.
No, at least when you're adrift in space and you're like slowly suffocating. By the way, sorry for this tangent, but it's just like at least you have something nice to look at, like the wonders of space.
I would rather the bubble burst and my lungs expand to the point where they explode, because then it'd be a quicker end.
Oh man, I am sorry I brought this up. This is really horrible to think about. So then Arthur kind of throws a rock at Buster's window to get his attention, because he wants to show Buster the article that his mother wrote, and it's just like, obviously they're not aliens or anything; they've just lived all over the world. And to your point, Lucas,
this is where he gets the most fake newsy. I don't know. It must be the current news cycle, and I'm sorry to keep harping on this, but this was really uncanny.
Yeah. Given
2017 and how. We've talked before about the Arthur writers being capable of time travel,
right.
Them sort of predicting Suicide Squad and how Jared Leto was going to act in that movie. But this is even closer. This is even like, it's weird. It's the movie Network-esque, where sort of something that's satirical becomes reality.
Well, and it's because Arthur's just like, well, this is why their stuff is different. Like, they've just lived all over the world. And Buster says, you don't believe that, do you? And Arthur's like holding up the paper. And he says, your mom wrote it. And he's like, my own mom, fooled by aliens. And I'm like, that's somehow easier to believe than his mother was telling the truth. So then this,
so weird.
So then this, I thought, was a real overstepping of bounds. Because it's like, Obviously, his mother's making a bunch of dinner because she's going to be having guests over. And then Buster just invites Arthur for dinner. No way would I have gotten away with that as a kid. Like, no way. Not even if there were people coming over. Or not even if there weren't people coming over. Of just like, hey, can my friend stay for dinner? I'm like, no. I only made enough for you, and that's all I care to make. Like, especially because dinner has already been made. She knows exactly how many people she's making dinner for. It's just like, can I add one more? I'm just like, no. No, you cannot. And just like, let him have dinner at his own place. But of course, Buster wants Arthur to guard him while he has dinner so he can eat in peace and not be encased in an airtight bubble. So then dinner is perfectly civil. In fact, nothing really happens. And then it just cuts to Sue Ellen introducing herself at school the next day. She was raised all around the world in places like Costa Rica and Nigeria. And, of course, she hadn't seen snow before because she lived in Costa Rica, very warm climate. And she passes around Nigerian money called kobo. And
which Buster has an amazing line where he goes, Kobo Schmobo, how do we even know this is an earth metal?
Just like he's really trying to stick to his guns with this one. And then so finally, Sue Ellen...
You could say he's got a confirmation bias.
Yes, absolutely. So finally, Sue Ellen invites him over for hot dogs because... Arthur told her that Buster loves them, and she's never had an American hot dog, to which Buster agrees and seems to resign himself to the fate that he's going to be neutralized by these aliens, but at least they have hot dogs, and maybe they're friendly. So...
yeah, maybe he'll have one last ballpark Frank. And you know what? I actually didn't really like this ending. I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves. But I find it was really like a Deus Ex Machina of like, oh, look at this last minute thing. And then Buster, on a dime, on a Kobo coin, immediately flips and goes, oh, okay, whatever, I'll be neutralized.
Right.
Yeah. That was my problem with the episode, too. I didn't find... the progression of the episode is super captivating. It's like they're paranoid, they're worried she's an alien, they have dinner, show and tell, and everything's cool. Like I didn't feel the climax of the issue really being resolved between Buster and Sue Ellen. They just kind of he just accepted his own fate via hot dog.
Yeah, pretty much. We'll be getting into the detailed breakdown at the end of the episode. But I'll be looking. That's okay. I think that's perfectly acceptable there. And now a word from us kids. Keeping on theme with the episode, we've got new kids in school at this Boston ? Public school. A lot of these now word from us kids seem to be in like the Boston area or maybe Massachusetts because of course it's WGBH Boston. So some of these kids, have the accents, some of them don't, and that's usually they go to like these Boston feeder schools like your PS 118 or whatever. So it's these new kids in school who are writing letters to Sue Ellen. Now, did you guys see this segment?
So I did, and I don't have much to say except my big question this time is like they're writing letters to Sue Ellen. I wonder if they show the kids the episode before they film the Word From Us Kids segment. Because they're talking about Sue Ellen, and they kind of know the details of her character, but I'm to assume this episode is her big debut, right?
Kind of,
So
yeah.
I wonder what context the producers like set up for the kids so they know what to write, like who Sue Ellen is, all that stuff. Those are my questions. I have a lot of questions about how Word From Us Kids is filmed.
Yeah, especially now that we're older and we kind of are able to understand how a TV show is put together. Yeah, I don't have much to say about it either. It's like these perfectly fine, kids' drawings and letters and all that stuff. I will say one of the kids had an awesome name that I want to call out, D. David Cole. I thought that was such a cool name. And I'm just like, I don't know. I just appreciate when a kid has a cool name. D. David Cole.
What did you think of it, Evan?
I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to the Word From Us Kids, truth be told.
You didn't miss much with this one, I don't think.
Yeah, that's the thing. It just wasn't compelling to me. I think it would be cool to get one of the kids on the podcast.
That's what I'm hoping to do.
One of the grown-up kids.
I mean,
just talk about the experience. I think that would be cool.
I mean, it's worth saying that if you were ever featured on Now Word From Us Kids, I would love to hear from you. ElwoodCityLimits@gmail.com or get in touch with us on social media. You're absolutely right. I think I said that kind of earlier in the podcast life, but man, I would love to know more about what that whole process was like. Moving into the second episode, it is The Perfect Brother. So Arthur talking about the classic childhood fantasy of wishing that you could live with your friends all the time, and talking about what it's like when Arthur has his friends over as guests. So when Buster is there, you know, the pro is he never has to eat leftovers the next day. And
Which, full stop. Okay.
Okay.
What is Arthur trying to pull here? I have no idea. Like, who in their right mind is like thinks leftovers is like a negative thing? It's I can't even wrap my head around it.
Well, I don't know. I feel like that was almost like that's like a kid stigma of like, ew, it's cold food. You know, it's a weird thing of like how now that you're older, one of the things I really appreciate is a nice home cooked meal from my mother. But when I was younger, all I wanted to eat was McDonald's and Wendy's and all that garbage instead of my mother's lovingly crafted home meals. So it must have something to do with that of just like, ew, my mom's cooking again? It's just colder? Good question.
Maybe I'm too far removed from my childhood, but I was like, Arthur, this is a ship I cannot sail on with you. This is crazy talk. Like, oh, I don't have to eat leftovers. Next, he's going to be like, oh, like, I
got too much cake for dessert.
Yeah, oh, I got too much birthday money. Like, it's a weird thing to say.
And of course, his dad is a chef. Like,
I know, it's so annoying.
How much better could it get?
They say youth is wasted on the young. Good food is wasted on Arthur.
Yeah, no kidding. Anyway, Buster is tucking the hell in to Arthur's spread and down to the last pea. And then he says, I wish Buster could eat here every night. I'm just like, yeah, that way you don't have to eat. Like, you're right. This is
peas.
Yeah, this is a well, and it's peas. It's like one of the least offensive vegetables out there.
I disagree. I think a lot of people have a very harsh reaction to peas. I know people who...
It's a texture thing, yeah. I like peas, but I see what you mean.
Absolutely. There's people who just, they'll throw up if they eat peas almost. Like they have it in their head so much that peas are disgusting and you don't want it in your mouth that they just can't eat them. I know a lot of people have a pea aversion. Never mind that.
Not R. Kelly, that's for sure.
Oh!
Hey!
There it is. And
try the veal.
So when Francine comes over, so Buster eats and Francine destroys. So like it's really like it's not even. It's almost like the new Godzilla movie. It's like we don't even see Francine, but we see the destruction in like her actual. She's the only kid in Elwood City to have like a wake, like destruction in her wake, her path, and it's just like everything is like ripped up, and the chandelier is like kind of going back and forth, and everything's like got all the schmutz all over it. It's crazy. Like,
Arthur's dad comes and he goes, "Let me guess, Francine was here."
To which I would
as if she was like a Category 5 hurricane or something. Hurricane Francine.
To which I would follow up with like, "Oh, Francine was here. Never again. This is not happening anymore."
Now, I want to know: does Francine have this reputation before this episode as being destructive?
A destroyer?
Yeah.
Kind of. She's been more of a ruffian, a general like hoodlum, but not necessarily.
Okay. Hoodlum's a little far. She's not like stealing stuff or anything.
I'll tell you what. She's not afraid to play in the mud.
Sure.
But she has not. She hasn't had the reputation for just straight up property damage that she gets in this episode. That's more of a Binky trait, I find.
I want to know what she was up to. I'm very curious. Especially the chandelier was swinging.
She was clearly swinging from it, and it's just like monkey bars style.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
So then Arthur,
like tomorrow doesn't exist.
And then Arthur says, "I wish my friends could live here, then everything would be perfect." Now, I want to put a pin in that, and I want to keep that as kind of an active discussion here on the show. That line, "I wish my friends could live here, that way everything could be perfect," which is kind of the theme of the episode, but also something I want to talk about. So the episode starts with Arthur doing another classic kind of crafty thing that you may or may not have done as a kid. So when I was a kid, we had like a full-on like craft drawer. So it was like markers, colored pencils, coloring books, and a lot of paints too, like water paints. So Arthur is painting on like old pieces of newspaper. He's painting some sort of animal. And DW says, "Is that a horse or a pig?" To which he's just like, "Go away." And I'm like, well, fair question. It's like kind of red, so it's not like it could be like a wild boar or some kind of sandy colored colt. And I guess his artistic eye is not that trained. Arthur's mom comes in and says that Alan is coming to spend the weekend. And I loved this. I love that none of his friends remember that Brain has a real name. So he's just like, Alan? Alan who? Well, you mean the Brain?
Well, I actually totally have a bunch of friends like that where a lot of my friends have the same name, the same first name.
Okay.
So a lot of them either go by nicknames or their last names. And so it's always weird to me when one of my friends are called Alex as opposed to how I know him as Chisholm. Or I have a couple friends where I know them purely by their nicknames. So I totally saw myself in this where I was like, I've had people where I'm like, who is that? Oh, you're talking about this person.
Okay. I've never really had that before. Do you have friends who have that?
Yeah, I definitely have nicknames that they go by more than the regular name, but I think Brain is definitely a pretty unique one. Who started calling him Brain?
It fits, right? He's super smart.
Yeah, so is it somebody who's not smart who said Brain, called him that? Or
he reclaimed it.
Or did he call himself Brain, or did his parents? Who came up with this name? And why does nobody even know his real name?
Good question.
So once we figure out that this episode's about Alan, or the Brain, coming to stay with Arthur, I realized this is actually, I remember, one of my parents' favorite Arthur episodes. My parents really like Arthur.
Really?
Because they used to watch it with us, much like Stephen Colbert when we were little kids.
Good activity.
And my parents, both my mom and my dad, really, really like this episode. Because they find the whole conceit, and it's interesting from a parent's perspective, but they find the whole conceit of the episode pretty entertaining in that, a kid comes over and they kind of show, I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but he kind of shows up Arthur, which is something that I think is really common in real life with play dates even, not just staying over.
For sure. That's interesting. Now that you mention that, my parents never ever really watched TV with me. That's something that I want to do with my kids later in life, is I'd like to be more active in their TV watching.
I remember because when I was a kid, my parents would reference this Arthur episode all the time. Maybe even
that would be so cool.
In a way which they would want to get me to, be more polite at the dinner table, like the Brain did in that one Arthur episode.
Why can't you chew your food like Alan?
Exactly. Hey man, I felt Arthur's pain.
You can't even measure up to a fake kid, let alone. That's awesome. So Arthur says, he gets all excited and he's just like, it'll be just like having a brother. I always wanted a brother. Instead, I got stuck with two sisters, and get a nice little DW line here of, you're not stuck. You can leave at any time. I'm like, fair enough. So Arthur's mind is racing with activities for them to do, and he starts off right in the clouds, because his very first activity he wants them to do is to build a time machine.
Which is sort of like a little kid thing. Like you take a cardboard box.
Little kids making active time machines.
Well, okay. So
he wants him to go the whole 9 yards.
Well, so here's the part of this that falls. Okay, there's a lot of this that falls apart when you put it under any sort of scrutiny. But my favorite part is that the time machine that they build in this dream sequence is made out of wood paneling.
Okay.
The thing you see is Arthur nailing the final nail in these wooden boards that they built the time machine with, and then the Brain goes, oh yeah, now I just need to put in its nuclear core.
Yeah, Brain getting the nuclear core from the Libyans or something.
And he drops it in with tongs, and I'm like, yo, dog, I don't think that wood paneling is the best way to encase that unstable uranium.
And we don't even know the machinery. Is that going in somewhere? Or does he just have to insert it like a DVD drop slot?
Yeah, he kind of does just drop it in like it's one of those top loader NESs, just ga-dunk.
I'll figure itself out.
Hey, but you know what? It proves me wrong, because not only does the wood hold up, they go back in time, which, again, another thing I love about the dream sequences is how fun you can tell, how much fun the animators have with the animation.
Right, because it's that very spot going backward in time from when the house is being built to before the dawn of time.
And you see dinosaurs dying in reverse.
Yeah, and from bones to dinosaur.
This sequence is super well animated. It's almost, dare I say, a Disney quality sequence. It's super high concept to see this sort of life in reverse sort of thing. It really surprised me, and it's a fun time. And then there's a big payoff too, where Arthur's like, how are we going to get home? And then
Brain's just like, I don't know how to go forward in time, just backwards. You want to talk about horrifying. That's it. It's being stuck in a wooden time machine that can never go back home. And Arthur even says, "Do you mean we can never go home?" And again, taking it on the chin in the face of horrific odds is Arthur just being like, "We can never go home," and not just like immediately breaking down in tears like me as a grown man I would do if I were in that situation.
Not very brainy of the brain, I gotta say. He's not living up to his name.
He doesn't have a lot of
fantasy, at least.
He's very good at the first step, and then the second step is where he kind of falters.
He doesn't think it through.
Ironically,
he thought so much about if he could. He didn't ask if they should.
Right.
So then, of course, Arthur says, maybe we'll try something simpler, like building sticky shoes that can basically act as anti-gravity footwear as they walk their way up the wall. So sticky that they can stay up there and like scare DW with a fake spider. And then, of course, getting to the much more conservative idea for them both is to stay up late, which, of course, is what you're going to do.
But they use the sticky shoes to do so. Like it's weird to me. Like,
but if you had them, wouldn't you be using them all the time? Why not? Why stay up late if you can't stay up late on the ceiling?
No, because if you were staying up late on the ceiling with sticky shoes reading comic books, all the blood would rush to your head. It'd be super duper uncomfortable. Like they're like giggling, yucking it up, having a great time. One, if they move one of their hands, they drop the comic book and the flashlight on the floor, so they're on the ceiling in the dark with a head full of blood. Like the whole situation seems like if you wanted to stay up, you could have just used that. If you're going to use the sticky shoes, climb a building or something. I don't know. Be like one of those Russian kids on Instagram where you climb to the top of a building and you're like, whoa, I'm doing push-ups on the side of this building.
I'm so afraid for those kids. I don't know. I think you're coming to being a little bit of a party pooper.
Listen, I just don't like having a head full of blood. I don't like laying down on my bed with my head hanging off, watching the TV upside down, let alone hanging from the ceiling. Spider-Man, I am not.
Tisk, tisk. So that's Arthur's ideas for what's going to be happening. And then DW later voices to her mother that it's like, Arthur's friend is coming over. It'll be like having two Arthurs. And then, again, talking about some scary imagery here. It's DW
I thought this was creepy, too.
Being actively chased and terrorized by two Arthurs. And we're not talking like Brain dressed as Arthur. It's Arthur and like a doppelganger. That has Brain's voice, but literally looks the same as Arthur.
And there's something really unsettling. I don't know what it is, because Arthur, like, nothing about Arthur looks sinister, but two Arthurs running at you, two identical Arthurs.
With like, rope and stuff?
And the main Arthur, like, we'll call him Arthur 1, who still has Arthur's voice, is sort of putting a put on, like, this is my evil Arthur voice.
Don't you want to play Egyptian princess?
And then the other one just sounds like the Brain, which I can't tell which one's worse.
Yeah,
like, it's
like,
just
one
weird.
One sounds evil.
Let's talk about DW's fantasy there, that she's worried not only about the doppelgangers, but Egyptian.
First you're a princess, and then you're a mummy.
Exactly. And he stretches out the toilet paper like it's duct tape, like very menacing. That's what she's worried about. This first you're a princess, then you're a mummy.
Yeah, I guess you're right, Evan. She should be more worried about the part where they suck out her brain with a straw.
Yeah. It could have been different.
It's weird to think about, especially because like,
could you imagine like the Arthur ones, like he's holding up like a little bendy straw. He's like, "You want to play Egyptian princess?"
Brain's making like a canopic jar in the shape of DW's head or something. It's super strange because we kind of know that, you know, Arthur's not really going to want to bother with DW when he has Brain over. So it's like he's not going to want to terrorize her. And then suddenly DW's like, oh no, now I'm outnumbered and Arthur's going to get his revenge on me. Like, it's very dark.
Yeah.
So Brain gets dropped off, and so his parents are on the way to the Ice Creamers convention because they own the local ice cream store. And Brain's mom was nominated for Best New Flavor, Cucumber Crunch.
Which was sort of become...
DW immediately is like, ew. And I'm like, yeah.
Cucumber...
Dude, don't even say that.
No. Cucumber and mint's totally like a dessert thing. It's totally a dessert thing. It's like a cold...
Stop it. You're going too far.
What do cucumbers taste like, Will? They taste like water. You can accent it with anything.
They taste like vegetables. They taste like green water.
This is all...
crunchy water.
You have a closed mind to this, my dude. Like, a cucumber soup is totally like something that I could see, but it's a cold soup. You know what I'm saying? Minted cucumber is a real flavor that people do use in cooking. I know that for
They
certain.
use it in like mixed drinks. I don't.
Yeah, exactly. Like a sweet mixed drink. It's like minted cucumber for sure.
It's
Listen, some of the flavors we hear about later in this series, like dead fish and all the crazy flavors
Sure.
that Brain's mom gets into, cucumber surprise or whatever it's called, doesn't seem that bad.
Sure,
I want to hear more
Sure,
about
it could be worse. It could be a kick to my nuts, but you know.
What does kick to my nuts have? Does it have like granola?
No, I'm
and,
just saying
like,
you could kick me in the nuts, and cucumber crunch would be better.
almond, some caramel maybe, like trail mix flavor.
Caramel.
I'll say this:
Ew.
like, I am really curious about this
Chocolate balls.
this convention, this ice cream convention. Like, I've heard tell of I really love consumer conventions, like the Consumer Electronics Show
CES, yeah.
or E3. The adult video convention, like
fast food conventions.
Yeah, something about those things fascinate me. Like, I've read about the pizza convention, and it's just all these vendors being like, try this pizza innovation we're trying out. It's super fascinating, and I'd love to watch like the ice cream awards. Like, what's the newest innovation in ice cream?
That
this
would
year?
actually be really cool. That's a great point.
They wouldn't let you in, Will, though, because you'd be putting up a fuss about cucumbers.
I'm not at the door. I'm not. I'm just gonna.
You'd be like, oh yeah, cucumber, and then the second you get your press pass, you're like, "Bleh."
Finger in the mouth. So Arthur and Brain start off playing together with their action figures. Did this ever happen to you when you were playing action figures with one of your friends, and then like they had an idea of what you wanted the two of you to do, and you had a different, like, did you ever have creative differences when you were playing with someone? Because I'm sure that's happened to me before, of just like, you wanted just like, we're going to play Power Rangers, and I'm like, no, we're going to play Transformers, and it's just like, I mean, and it's like, no, this is Power Rangers, no Transformers, and like, create, like, the earliest manifestation of creative differences. Like, you ever have that when you were younger?
I always hated playing pretend with other kids. For that very reason. Like, I always found that, like, whenever I played with, I certainly never played with action figures with another kid. Ain't no other kids touching my 20th anniversary Optimus Prime. That thing's like $100. But I will say that, like, a problem I always ran into as a kid is, like, if you're playing war or something, there's always some kid who's like, I got a shield. I didn't die. Like, no one's willing to...
Nobody's willing to do the job.
Yeah, no, exactly. No one's willing to do the job for the sake of the game. That's why I think like tabletop games are so popular with adults, things like Dungeons and Dragons, because it's essentially playing pretend like you would as a kid, but with a set of rules that enables people to fail. Because when you play and there's no pretend obstacle or no pretend hardships or struggle, it's not interesting if every kid's like, I got a shield.
Right.
There's nothing fun about that. So the fact that like modern tabletop games have sort of sets of rules and mathematics that allow you to really use your entire imagination, but within a set of constraints, I think is why it's so attractive to adults who were creatives as a kid.
Okay. What about you, Evan?
Yeah, I didn't play a lot of action figures with the other kids. I guess sometimes you would run into the creative differences. Because, nobody wants to establish the rules, but when it comes to action figures, that wasn't something I did too often. I collected the action figures and I had them, but no, I didn't incorporate my friends with that too much.
For me, kind of after what Lucas said, it's just like you had kind of this is kind of the way the world works. It's like you have two people when you're playing imagination games with other people. It's just like you have an idea, and either your friends are like going along with it, or they have a super different idea, and in a way that kind of determines who you're friends with. Because a lot of my friends were just like would go along with it, and then like if anybody else comes to challenge that, I'm just like, no, we have to play my way.
They learned how to yes and at a young age.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard enough to play.
Skill.
It's hard enough to play games with your friends when you're younger. When there are rules, like, you ever play Pokemon cards with anybody? Who knows the rules to playing Pokemon cards?
Well,
like,
you need those tokens, so you can flip the token.
You need the energy cards.
The energy cards.
your
I don't know
bench
anybody who knew how to
counters.
play that, and everybody was just cheating and breaking the rules. And I would know how to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Very, very well.
Yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh's a lot simpler.
Yeah.
Yu-Gi-Oh's less, but still there'd be people who are like, "No, this is how you do it," and it's like, "No,
it's not."
So it's kids don't.
Well, because with Yu-Gi-Oh, the TV show would tell you 3 different things. It's just like, the rule book says you start with 8,000 life points, but they're doing 2,000 life points on the show, and then they go to 4,000. And we're like, well, which one is which? It's the Wild West over here of Yu-Gi-Oh.
Exactly.
No, I had my days of Yu-Gi-Oh, I can tell you that. Yeah. Brain is very well-mannered. He's tidier and he's more sensible than Arthur, and we see that in a couple of ways of just like he tidily puts away his clothes. He asks if he can be excused from the dinner table, and Arthur's just like, yo, I'm out. Takes his plate. He thanks Arthur's dad and all that sort of thing. And then like suggests that he and Arthur do their math homework of just like he's being an A-plus guest, and to the point where he's very much impressing Arthur's family. So they do their kind of math problems together, and of course, Brain's so smart he finishes it before Arthur, so they can get a jump start on next week's lessons, which Arthur's completely aghast at.
Yeah, I got to stop you there because if that happened in my home, they would be out.
Yeah, I agree 110%, Evan. Like, I felt for Arthur so bad in this one sequence where he's like, oh, yeah, we're going to work ahead on next week's curriculum. Like, no, dog. I don't know who you think I am. I don't know where you're coming from with this Keener BS, but it's got to stop.
Because it's not even just being proactive with the assignment at hand. It's... If we do our homework today, we'll have the rest of the week to read ahead for next week's lesson. Read ahead? Where have you ever had the text to read ahead for the next? I would never imagine that in a million years. And I would say, nerd, get out of my house.
If it wasn't Mr. Ratburn, do you think a public school teacher knows what they're doing next week?
Absolutely not.
Come on, like, let's get real here.
Yeah, so that was no good. Definitely on Arthur's side in that one.
So not only all of this, but Brain proving himself superior to Arthur in many ways. He's also better at basketball, and I'll tell you, Brain is balling.
Yeah, Brain's putting up triple doubles like nobody's business.
And he said like
he's a regular Russell Westbrook.
Like Arthur even says, you beat me 30 games to none. Arthur's getting his spot blown up by Brain.
But in Arthur's defense, like he's kind of out of breath and he's tired. He's hunched over, and I'm like, yo, dude, you're playing basketball in a collared shirt and a sweater. And, hey, Brain's doing that too, and he's not even breaking a sweat, which is very impressive. But, my dude, get some shorts or something. I don't know if you guys ever tried to play basketball in that sort of wardrobe.
Not even basketball in general.
Very, very uncomfortable.
No kidding.
So, I feel for Arthur. No one likes to be crossed up 30 times in a row.
And then, of course, Brain says he shoots 100 free throws every night for practice. And a great line here, I was just like, Arthur's like, you weren't just born good? I'm just like, if only he was born that good, then Arthur at least wouldn't be able to compete. That night they're like going to sleep. It's like Friday night or something, and then Arthur's like, you want to sneak down and watch Curse of the Puppet Sister on TV? And it's just like Curse of the Puppet Sister. And I'm like, he probably looks like DW or something. So when I was a kid, like, you know, Child's Play and all that sort of thing, there was this horror movie called Pinocchio's Revenge, and I was pretty scared of puppets. Now I'm not scared by them, but they make me physically ill.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
It's weird. Like my uncle had like this animatronic Pinocchio doll, and I remember I was like eating like sweet and sour chicken balls and he turned it on and it started dancing, and I was just like, I'm not hungry. So then Brain, like a capital N nerd, says, I think we'd better sleep. It's while you sleep you grow.
Great little nugget of wisdom right there.
And then to which Arthur has his own, which I personally agree with. I'd rather be short and watch scary movies.
Again, I agree with Arthur on this one 110% in that I am short and I would rather watch scary movies. Word. So I'm with you, brother. I'll be 5'6" and watch Dream Warriors till the day I die.
Sounds good to me, man.
I'm interested in dissecting this statement here, though.
Okay.
That it's while you sleep you grow. What do you guys get out of that? Because I think there's something to it. I don't think he's completely out to lunch in this one.
Wait.
No, I don't. It's just like, it just sounds incredibly geeky. Of just like,
it's also not true.
It's like, come on.
I don't think that's true. I think you're growing at all times.
It sounds like a bit like an old wives' tale.
I think it's like but it's uncharacteristic for the Brain because he's very matter of fact. He doesn't use hyperbole. He doesn't simplify things. He's always giving the dictionary, textbook, encyclopedic definition. That's his whole shtick. Like, instead of, if Brain saw a dog, he wouldn't say that's a dog. He'd be like, oh, that's a canine. Like, he'd use the Latin name.
Caninus.
Yeah. So, it was weird to me. I don't think that's true. I think you're growing all the time. But maybe he was just trying to coerce Arthur into going to sleep.
It's possible.
Yeah, I was thinking that too, of just like maybe he's just tired from the 100 free throws that he
exactly.
hit.
But hey, guess what, nerd? I want to watch Jason X. And I'll
Jason in Space.
Yeah, absolutely.
Such a good movie.
Yeah.
So then Brain just, man, he keeps going because the next day, DW says as Arthur's coming outside, while you were tying your shoes, Brain taught Pal new tricks, and these are like circus grade tricks. He's like teaching him how to like crawl on the ground, how to walk on his hind legs, and how to throw something out, like with just these simple hand signals and like clapping. Like, I don't know how he achieved that in seconds.
I'll tell you how. He's got the Velcros.
The Velcros?
Yeah, he could do up his shoes right quick because he's got them like Raph Simmons Velcros. And so he snaps those on, does his 3 throws, and he gets to teaching.
To which DW is just like, I always thought that dog was dumb. I guess it's just you, Arthur.
Which is a good line because DW is always talking about, that fits in the continuity. DW is always talking about how dumb Pal is.
And then they're making their own like kind of cardboard plane flyers. And, Brain's like, taking this corner off of the wing and then like making sure it's aerodynamic. Arthur's just kind of slamming his together and be like, I'm done first. I beat you.
It's the one thing Arthur gets over Brain like in this entire episode.
Yeah,
he's like, I beat you.
But then he doesn't because Brain's playing the long game because his plane like stays up in the air for minutes at a time, and Arthur's is just a dumb old plane that just flops down whenever you throw it. And really gets shown up here. And then once again, Arthur's dad is making like sandwiches or burgers or whatever, and so he's like putting in mayonnaise, ketchup, and mustard. And then Brain just takes over for a second. He puts them all into their own containers, duct tapes them together so they can use all 3 at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Which Arthur's dad's like super mystified by. He's like, oh my goodness, like what a crazy idea. It saves so much time.
And to which Arthur has a great line. He says, yeah, Dad. Mayonnaise is wild.
It's a great line, and it's a great delivery, too. Like, It's a very, like, 2017, like...
Snarky millennial.
Yeah, snarky millennial, like, rolling your eyes, looking up from your phone. Dad, mayonnaise is wild.
I was thinking more of that.
Current term.
It's like this mayonnaise is lit. But it's also a bit of that classic 90s disaffected sarcasm.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, Dad, mayonnaise is real wild. So then Arthur wants to play his favorite game with Brain. I thought this was incredibly sad. He says, this is my favorite game, but no one likes to play with me. I'm like, oh, man, that really sucks. And
which, I know the board game struggle, man. If you're trying to, like, trick people into playing Carcassonne or Arkham Horror with you, it's like, I promise it's going to be fun. Like, come on, guys. So you take this 8-sided die and you do this. People
and collect these runes.
Yeah, people can't stop looking at the door.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind going back to the condiments, actually.
Yeah, please do.
Because the whole thing is that Brain is being a very polite guest. He's doing everything right. He's
helping out.
He's helping, but this condiment thing, I think he's getting a little carried away because who duct tapes 3 bottles of condiments together as in that's helpful? Like, and they all thought it was. And also when you look at what was getting plopped onto the bread, not well dispersed. This big big chunk of all these nasty condiments just in a blob. Like they didn't even spread it with a knife. There's nothing impressive about it, and it was
wow.
I
didn't care for it.
Arthur's dad is a professional chef. That's his bread and butter. The gall of someone to waltz into his place of business and go, oh yeah, I could do better. Brain does it in a more polite way. He's like, oh, I don't think you're using the full capacity of here's a much more. But it's still like, it's like if someone walked into my place of business and was like, oh, you know what, I've really streamlined this thing you do. And
Brain's able, he's got that skill to fake it till you make it. He can just walk in and be like, I can help you here. And then he just kind of figures something out on the fly.
It's like, here's what you're doing wrong. The mayonnaise, ketchup, and relish aren't all duct taped together.
Yeah, could you imagine
Try this.
someone saying that to like a Guy Fieri, like waltz right in and goes, no, I got my own route to Flavor Town. I don't think he would be too pleased. I don't think I've ever seen that man unhappy in my life.
Yeah.
That's a good point there, Evan. And then Arthur bringing out this board game, and now Brain has reprogrammed his mother's computer. And
that was impressive. I'll give him that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Delete this and everything will run faster. It's just like, 90s computers. All you had to do was delete files and it would run faster. That's cute. So Arthur sets up the board game outside, and then
Which, by the way, not a good move. Board games outside, not that fun. The wind blows the pieces away. It gets lost. Not a good. Play it inside.
Yeah, and then Brain is reading Rapunzel to DW. Like he's barely even paying attention to Arthur. He just got wrapped up in this story with DW. And Arthur, at this point, thoroughly annoyed with Brain's perfection because he goes over to Buster's house and Buster's like, why didn't you want him coming to the park with us? And he's just like, he's always being smarter than me, neater than me. He even eats better than I do. And it's a cutaway to Brain and Arthur eating a plate full of fries, which is actually something I remember having as a kid, like back in the day, just like a classic kid dinner of just like, here's a bunch of fries, like have at 'em, kiddo. And
one thing I wanted to say about this little bit is we've seen Buster's house before and Francine's house before, but something that I just realized watching this episode was I actually think it's a really cool detail. When you see the outside of each of the kids' houses, you could tell they come from different economic backgrounds.
Yeah, that's something I've always appreciated too.
And what I love about that is because it's something I never noticed as a kid. It's something you only appreciate as an adult, and I think that's totally the goal of it. It's like... its goal is to show, like, it's not even something that should enter a kid's brain. Like, oh, Francine lives in this small apartment. Buster kind of also lives in, like, a slightly bigger,
bit of like a duplex.
Yeah, like a duplex. And as adult looking at that, it's like, oh, their parents have different incomes.
Yeah.
But as a kid, it's just like, oh, kids live in different places.
Yeah.
I never even realized as a kid that as someone who lived in a small apartment when I went over to their house had less money than my family.
Sure.
It's just that they live in a different house.
You just assume everybody lives in houses, and then you go and like I remember going over to my friend's houses that was an apartment. I'm like, this is awesome. I wish I lived in an apartment.
So I think it's a cool touch by the writers, and it shows how, like, representation in media works, especially in kids programming, because once you see something as like, oh, I just see that and it's like normal, it's subtly, almost subconsciously teaches that lesson in that kid's head. So that's a great detail that I never noticed about Arthur until now.
That's a great point. Thank you very much for bringing it up. It's something that I kind of think about, but I never thought of really vocalizing at all. So yeah, the cutaway where again. You want to talk about things that Brain's doing, sticking in your craw. It's eating fries with a fork and knife. Mm-hmm. Like it's like cutting pizza with a fork and knife. Like it's for middle-aged mothers and nobody else. Like stop it. Just use your hands like a normal person.
Yeah. I'm with you on the fries. I disagree about the pizza. When you're typing on a computer, you don't want to get grease on the keys.
Just use a napkin.
Oh, Lucas, okay. I thought I knew you.
Listen, use a napkin. Oh, so I got all the time in the world? All you got to do is slice up with a fork and knife. It's easy peasy.
What are you
I'm gonna create.
What's your
so you want me to destroy the environment? Is what you're saying? You want me to create a bunch of waste? All I need to use is a fork and a knife. I just wash them. There's no footprint. It's a more
fake news.
It's an
fake news.
Ecologically, no, this is factual.
No, it's not.
There is qualitative and quantitative data.
Alternative fact.
I'll have my cucumber ice cream after I have my dinner of fork and knife pizza.
Oh, you can keep it all. I can't believe this. Feels so betrayed. But then Buster kind of says to him, the brain is nice. He wouldn't be trying to make you look bad on purpose. And Arthur, another really sad line. You're right. I guess it's not his fault. My family likes him better. Like, oh, man. He's really resigned himself to the fact that just like, well, might as well throw me out with the trash because I'm not doing any better than this.
Well, it's also not Arthur's fault, though. Like, if you listen carefully, like, Arthur's parents are being super passive-aggressive this whole episode.
Yeah, like, look how neatly Alan keeps his clothes.
And I get that they're not trying to be, like, ultra annoying, but if my parents were doing that stuff to me, I'd be like, oh, my God, guys, like, cut it out.
Like, I get it.
I'd rather them just be like, hey, Lucas, could you be a little bit more clean than be like, oh, look at your friend. I hate when people are passive-aggressive that way. Just communicate with me directly.
No, you're absolutely right. So Arthur goes home, and his dad kind of makes him finish his math homework. And then, like, the biggest slight in this episode, this is as sad as it gets. Arthur is doing his math homework, then he goes to the window when he hears his family laughing and having fun, and they're playing his favorite board game outside without him. They didn't even invite him to play. That is so mean.
DW said it wasn't fun playing with Arthur because Brain actually read the rules. Which, you know what? You know what, though? I'm with DW on that one.
You may have a point.
Yeah. Sure. Oh, we're just going to play Game of Thrones, the board game, and make it up as we go along. No, dog, that board game's complicated as heck. Yeah. You got to know about the victory track and who holds the Iron Throne. You can't just jump in on that one.
What happens with free parking? Nothing. Don't worry about it. No, but I still found that really, really sad. Like, really... I would almost. It almost seems like something Arthur would imagine of like they're playing my favorite board game without me and they didn't invite me. But it's like no, this is actually happening. This is like a nightmare. And I noted that when DW says that thing, like, Brain reads all the rules, she kind of puts a little bit of a lilt in her voice. It just like, it's like, when I played this game with Arthur, it was boring. He didn't read all the rules like you, Alan. So it's like, I think DW is kind of crushing on the Brain a little bit.
Well, DW is always putting those things out there that never leave you and dwell on your psyche. And she'll mess with you mentally and emotionally for sure. That's how she operates.
Wow. So you're saying that she's doing this like while looking Arthur in the eye and being like...
I just think she has a very poisonous attitude at times, for sure. I think.
She's like
Do you guys not agree?
4.
Yeah.
She's like 4 years old.
Well, we've
all children are sociopaths. You know what I mean? They have no sense of the other. They're self-obsessed. So I wouldn't expect anything worse or better from her.
At this point, just seeing DW this many times, I feel like it's a bit more maybe innocent than you're putting on.
Well, I just see her very much as like, you guys watch Drake and Josh, like Megan.
No, actually,
she's a lot like Megan.
Miranda Cosgrove's character.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
She's where always out to get the brothers, always trying to ruin their good time, ruin their fun.
Hey, that's siblings though, huh? Ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth?
I suppose, but I'm just saying. Sometimes she put things out there that are pretty negative.
Hey, sisters, am I right? You can't live with them, can't live without them. Hey,
interesting take there on that, Evan. So finally,
was it?
No, I mean, it's good to get another sort of look at it from the other side because we're very partial to DW.
Well, I mean, Arthur's like the main character, right?
Yes.
And there's no real villain in the show.
No.
But certainly in Arthur's life, DW kind of comes across as a villain, and to Arthur, DW is the thorn in his side, always trying to ruin what he's trying to do.
I totally agree, especially when you just look at this episode. But I also find in a lot of other episodes, looking back at it now, I find Arthur has been a lot more unsympathetic than I remember him being. A lot of cases where DW is filling the villainous role, she's doing it in a way where she's just being annoying and she just kind of wants his attention. Yeah. And a lot of times Arthur has a really nasty response to that sort of energy. And I get it. Again,
I agree,
you have to think about all of this in the context of, they're kids. Like, this is how kids operate, which is realistic. But I do think your perspective is valid.
It's that kids kind of have the capacity to be both hero and villain.
Yeah. I'm also mean just because Arthur's our main character. He's our guy. He's who are following. But I do agree because in this episode, a lot of the seemingly nasty things DW said were pretty founded. Like we were talking about the picture that Arthur was drawing. It wasn't a good picture. So I mean, it's like, so it's like she does have a point, but you know.
She could have said it a bit nicer.
Yeah.
So it's finally Brain's time to leave, and Arthur is rushing him out of the door. But before he leaves, DW says, "Kate said her first word this morning, Brain." I'm like, wow, just rubbing it in. So Arthur's kind of sulking, walking Brain back to his house, and just like, Brain's like, "Are you mad at me, Arthur?" And he's like, "Who could be mad at you? You're perfect." And just like nice little diplomatic response, but also very little tinge with a bit of venom. So Brain gets back home, and we finally find out that it was not all it was cracked up to be. Brain isn't perfect all the time. He kind of, his parents are happy to see him, and he kind of rushes away from him, and then they go up to his room, and it's like a pigsty. Like, he's got clothes and crap everywhere. And, Brain said, "I was a guest in your house. I had to be polite. I had to be neat and tidy, and it almost killed me." Because, of course, the kind of common trope with, smarty pants in fiction is that they're very disorganized and messy. And then finally, we end the episode with Arthur and Brain using one of those classic popcorn makers to make popcorn. And then Arthur kind of gets his final dig in by helping Brain's dad bring in the groceries. And then, his dad's like, "Alan, you could learn a few lessons from Arthur." And like, a little dig in the ribs, got you there, pal. And then they start throwing popcorn at each other. And then
the roles reverse.
Yeah, very much
But
so.
It still stands that the Brain is way better at basketball than Arthur.
That's true.
That'll never change.
And you know what, though? We don't know if it's that the Brain's really, really good or if Arthur's game's just straight trash.
It's true.
This is not the first time basketball has come up. Like, we've seen DW beat Arthur at three throws before in previous episodes.
It's true, yeah.
So I'm starting to think that the problem's more with Arthur than it is the Brain, though he does throw 103 throws a day.
So you're saying that Arthur's game is straight up Greta Garbo?
I'm saying, yeah, Arthur's game is weak AF. Maybe he could play for, like, who's doing really bad right now? He's certainly, like, the Brain's going to get drafted to the Spurs, Oklahoma City, but Arthur, man, he's going to be stuck with the Pelicans. Like, they're going to draft him this season.
Ouch.
Yeah.
All right, so now is the time of the episode where we can take a look back and give our thoughts. So we're going to start it. We're going to move down the line since there is a line to move down this time. Evan, what did you think of Sue Ellen Moves In?
It was cool. Like I said, this is the first Arthur episode I've watched in a while. Thought it was fine. I liked all the Buster paranoia that was going on. I liked all the dream sequences, the fantasies and stuff. And it just reminded me why I like Arthur. Arthur, to me, is kind of like the kids' version of like The Simpsons, maybe. Like there's a very large cast of characters.
Yeah, it's
like,
got an
all throughout the
ensemble
town.
cast.
The teacher's a character. Like I guess it's mostly kids, but all the adults. Like there's a big diverse array of characters, which is cool. So I like that about it. Again, I think the episode could have been paced a little better if I have to really critique it, because it did all of a sudden. It's just like everybody thinks Sue Ellen is damn near evil, and then it's just like, oh, okay, no, she's from somewhere else, and it's cool, and then it was just all resolved in like a snap of the fingers,
Yeah.
So I kind of wish there was a little bit more of a climax, but it was cool. I liked it.
All right, and it's good to get your thoughts as somebody who's kind of returning to Arthur for the first time in a long time, whereas we've been kind of entrenched with it for the last. By the way, 21 episodes. Congratulations!
Hooray!
Making it to 20 episodes. And thanks for being here with us, Evan. Of course. What?
Nothing.
Okay. I will go from something you said and kind of into my own, Evan. It was that I did think that the episode didn't really wrap up as well as it wanted to. The ending just kind of came out of nowhere. And I will say I'm not really a huge fan of this one just because it was, normally in these episodes you want to kind of give the audience a good idea of what a character is, like who they are. And I mean, by the end of the episode, we kind of get it. We get a very brief, vague overview of like, oh, she's the person who, who comes from away, sort of thing. She's lived all over the world.
She's the wild thornberry.
Sure.
It's more of a Buster episode than it is a Sue Ellen.
That's what I was going to say. Is that for an episode that's about introducing a new character, we don't really. It's not really from her perspective, or like it doesn't really tell us much about her. It's all about everybody else reacting to her, especially Buster. And while the Buster stuff was kind of funny in that weird kind of prescient way that you mentioned, Lucas, like it also kind of tired me a little bit because of just like, again, we're making it all about Buster and how paranoid he is and all that sort of stuff. And like, at some points, it's just like, okay, can we talk about Sue Ellen now? Like we know everything that she isn't. She isn't a cat burglar. She isn't a spy. She isn't invisible. She isn't an alien. But like, what is?
I'll also say though those little vignettes with Sue Ellen as all those different things, those were my favorite parts of the episode.
Those were a lot of fun. I thought those were a lot of fun. I thought that another opportunity where the creators got to be creative and really kind of flex that muscle a little bit. But other than that, I wasn't really that crazy.
Hopefully, we'll be seeing some more Sue Ellen.
Yes,
and see how this character develops.
Yeah, absolutely. Lucas,
I felt really conflicted about this episode for a couple of reasons. First of all, I think they sort of missed the point, or they didn't really. Like, what I mean by this is, at first, I thought this episode was going to be about rumors. And that's what I thought the moral of the episode was going to end up being, because when you see all those...
You thought this was going to be about that Fleetwood Mac song?
Exactly, that album. Like, when everybody's calling each other and saying all these things about Sue Ellen, and they're also like looking into her house and making all these assumptions, like I thought the moral of the story was going to be like, don't spread rumors about people,
right.
Because that's like a really negative thing to do,
sure,
especially for a kid.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then it's sort of like there isn't really a moral to the episode. Like, what's the moral? Like, hey, Buster, stop reading the fake news. Like, and that's the other thing. Is like, I love Buster. He's one of my favorite characters, and I find him really funny. And I like when they play up his sort of eccentricities. But like, this is so weird. This is such a weird thing. But I really, really was uncomfortable with. Again, like you said before, just this episode in the current context of 2017, the way that kind of thinking, that sort of stick your head in the ground, do not believe facts when they are presented to you, fake news, hashtag fake news thinking, is something that's really, we laugh and it's kind of strange to see in this kids show, but it's something that really frustrates me and that I think is straight up dangerous to the world at large these days. And so it gave me the icks. Like, I just had a really bad vibe this whole episode with all the stuff Buster was saying. Like, especially when he's saying stuff like it's that kind of thinking and like not trusting his mom's newspaper article. It was just a little too real for me. It hit a little too close to home.
And it's funny because if it were like a year earlier that
I know, it's so weird.
You may be thinking completely differently about this, but I think that's a good point to bring up. It's so strangely analogous to what's going on right now. But what did you think of The Perfect Brother?
So The Perfect Brother, I think, it holds a special spot in my heart as one of my parents' favorite episodes.
Right.
Looking back on it today, it's not the most entertaining episode in the world. It's definitely a lot slower paced than the one that precedes it. But I think it's okay. Like, it's got a good moral. I think it's a situation that a lot of kids find themselves in. I know I'm always the bad kid when I'm at my house, and I was always the polite kid when I was at someone else's house. So I definitely lived it, and it's one of the times where, we've talked before about how sometimes I have trouble feeling for Arthur or seeing his perspective just because I think so differently than him.
Sure.
But in this episode, I totally felt for Arthur and I totally empathized with his position. So I think that's its strength. It's not as funny as the episode before it, but I definitely, again, it didn't make my skin crawl like Sue Ellen Moves In did.
I liked this one. I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was nice and imaginative in certain places. You're right. I was able to kind of understand where Arthur was coming from. The point that I wanted to make that I brought up earlier, the theme of the episode is kind of like, I wish my friends could live here, and I actually took a little something out of this more as an adult than anything else. Of just when you're a kid, you wish you could just live with all your friends because you think it's going to be.
It's like Animal House.
Yeah, it's going to be like a 24/7 party. Like, how could that not be amazing? If you didn't have to worry about money and food and all that sort of thing, you just have your friends would live with you all the time. But that's a lesson that you have to learn, and this is like kind of Arthur learning that lesson, except for some of us, it comes when like maybe we live with a friend as a roommate. And it's just like it's a lot different than like seeing your friend at school and then having to like come home to them. It's like having a friend as a roommate or just realizing like how differently you guys are than when you're out in public than when you're at home, I think is a really important lesson to learn because you come to find out, living with one of my best friends, like it's not a 24/7 party. In fact, they kind of get on my nerves now. And this is kind of Arthur learning that lesson, albeit in a different context than say you or I would when we were older. So
it's all fun and games until you see that mystery hair on the bar of soap, and then you go, I'm done with this.
Right. So
nope.
So I kind of took a bit more away from it as an adult than I may have as a kid. But yeah, I thought it was pretty good.
I agree. I like the Brain episode a little bit more than I like the Sue Ellen one.
Okay.
Even though the Sue Ellen one was a little more out there, wild with the conspiracy theories, the cutaways to the fantasy scenes and stuff like that, and that was cool. But I liked the heart of the Brain episode a little bit more. I think I like that it actually kind of drove home a little bit of a moral message, and. So that was pretty nice. It also had the best quote with, yeah, Dad, mayonnaise is wild.
It's true. I wrote down this is my favorite quote of these two episodes.
Yeah, and I'll give some honorable mentions to the other one. I mean, which one was it? It was... they're going to neutralize me from Buster. That was a really good one in the Sue Ellen one, but the mayonnaise line was really good. And even It's Why You Sleep You Grow, I like that one too.
Yeah,
I thought that was cool.
That one seemed to really stick.
Just because he just had a little bit of I don't know. It seems like we're starting to see Brain's spiritual side or something like that. Like he seems to have something up his sleeve that maybe we don't know about.
Oh, he's very namaste.
Yeah. But certainly it's a relatable episode for kids, having their friend over and feeling like they're getting showed up a little bit, especially with the Brain. Perfect kid to be coming over and doing that.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah, I can't see Binky showing up Arthur that much.
I want to see that episode when Binky comes over.
No, in fact, Arthur shows up Binky a little bit. Later episode, Arthur stays over at Binky's place. So we'll be getting to that much, much later. Mm-hmm. All right, so there's the episodes. Sue Ellen Moves In and The Perfect Brother. You can, of course, seek that out for yourself. And speaking of seeking things out, before we get into our plugs. Evan, did you have a good time?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on the show.
Of course.
Been a fan of the podcast, so honored to be on it.
And as a matter of fact, before we get in our plugs, is there anything that you would like to plug? Any of your creative endeavors?
You can always check out the Albert Wiley 4-Way on SoundCloud. I'll just leave it at that.
I'll tell you what. We will it's not retweet. It's not. Well, maybe it's like
reblog.
I'll share a couple things on our SoundCloud this week.
Okay.
And
I don't know if the audiences intersect very closely. But
I will put up a warning there that it's a bit it could be a bit NSFW.
It's rap music.
In terms of language, it is rap music,
Yeah.
but it is Evan Stoney laying it down. So I'll get you to send me a couple of recommendations of your stuff, and I'll see to sharing that this week on our SoundCloud feed.
Throwing bands like you're Muffy. Okay, I was trying to think of an Arthur rap lyric. That's the closest I could think of.
All right. So, of course, you can catch us on your favorite social media platforms, including Facebook, facebook.com/Elwood City Limits. You can follow us on Twitter at ECL Podcast. Thank you to everybody for the interactions we had in the past week. Retweets, likes, and responses galore. It's been a great time. ElwoodCityLimits.tumblr.com. Great place to go as well if you want to see all of our fun screen caps and reblogs and all that sort of stuff. And, of course, you can listen to the podcast soundcloud.com/Elwood City Limits, and you'll be able to hear a little bit of Mr. Evan Stoney's rap side. And he is quite good. If you're into hip-hop, I would definitely recommend that you keep your eye on us and, of course, give them a follow as well. One more time, what's it called?
The Albert Wiley 4-Way.
Right, good to know. And finally, if you're on iTunes, you can, of course, keep us with you everywhere your Apple device goes. Remember, if you are on either Facebook or on iTunes, please rate and review. We would really appreciate it. And, of course, subscribe. And finally, if you would like to send us an email for the show, elwoodcitylimits@gmail.com. All right, that's going to do it for me. And once again, Evan, appreciate you being here with us. Lucas, any final words?
I'd rather be short and watch scary movies.
Ain't that the truth? Okay, for Evan Stoney, our special guest, and of course Lucas Mancini, my name's Will Young. Thanks for listening to this episode of Elwood City Limits.
I'd wear a t-shirt that said
Hey,
Mosquito Bunny, if you want to go and hang around with me, with the only me, why do I live?
Exhilarating.